Welcome to today's hearing entitled Examining the Risk, the Dangers of EV Fires for First Responders. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. I'd like to thank everyone and to Ranking Member Fushi and the other members of our committee for being here this morning. Today's hearing will examine the growing dangers that electric vehicle fires pose to the American public and the lack of guidance and resources provided to first responders across the country. For over 100 years, our highways have been dominated by internal combustion engine vehicles. Throughout this time, we've invested resources and expertise to learn the best practices for extinguishing internal combustion engine vehicle fires. However, within the last 2 decades, we've seen a large increase in the number of electric vehicles on the road. The federal government has pushed for a transition to EVs, incentivizing their development through tax credits and charging station infrastructure grants. Worldwide, there are now roughly 3.1 million EVs in operation today. Many experts in the auto industry anticipate that by 2030, there will be nearly 130 million vehicles in operation. As the presence of these vehicles continues to grow on our roads, so does the threat and danger of the fires they can produce. EV fires are fundamentally different from traditional internal combustion engine fires, and they present new dangers that our first responders need to be prepared for. EV fires burn at temperatures far hotter than regular vehicle fires. They produce copious amounts of toxic chemical gases, expose firefighters to the risk of electrocution, and are often inextinguishable for hours or even days, with the constant threat of reignition due to thermal runaway. When an EV either experiences an incident due to a manufacturing defect or is damaged in an accident, the battery that powers that vehicle often has a remaining charge. This stranded energy provides the fuel to keep a battery burning for hours, regardless of how much water is poured on it in an attempt to extinguish it. Unfortunately, the federal government has been deficient in providing guidance and resources to our firefighters in dealing with this threat. There is currently no uniform guidance on how to address EV fires or protect firefighters from the unique hazards they present, leaving many fire departments to formulate ad hoc solutions. For example, firefighters in Wakefield, Massachusetts had to dump 20,000 gallons of water over 2 hours to put out an EV fire. Firefighters in Sacramento were forced to submerge an EV in a makeshift pond because the vehicle kept reigniting. Vehicle manufacturers themselves have not provided uniform solutions to this problem, with some manufacturers recommending that EVs be removed from the road and left to burn themselves out. As you could imagine, in my home state of California, where wildfires are an ever-present danger, letting an EV just burn itself out is not an option. Today's hearing is about ensuring the safety of our firefighters and first responders. This hearing also seeks to raise awareness of the dangers of EV battery fires and to ensure that those who help protect and serve our communities are provided with the resources they need to do their jobs. This requires that we understand the threats of EV fires and the substantial differences between EVs and ICE vehicles to develop new best practices and uniform guidance. I'm looking forward to the hearing today. Chief Muncy, thanks again for being here. Our county is larger than most states, and that presents some unique challenges in extinguishing fires. I was struck by, in listening to your testimonies, some of the vast amounts of water that's required to put out EV fires. What do you do if you're responding to a fire and you don't have a hydrant readily available? Or what do you do when an incline is so steep as it is in many places in our district when just getting access to the EV is a challenge?
These are challenges. I'll point out that the 15 freeway, if we shut down the 15 freeway, there's several $1 million of commerce that's affected per hour. So an EV fire on the freeway, it's best to extinguish it rather than let it burn out. That would be option number one and the preferable method, just let it burn. On the 15 freeway in our desert areas or in our mountain areas where we wouldn't have hydrants that are nearby, we really don't have a lot of options except for using a fire blanket that was demonstrated in the video to help control that fire. 2 would be to bring a dip tank to the site and fill it. Other than that, there really is no other options. If we start attacking these fires using tank water, meaning the water tank on the fire engine, these are typically only 500 to 750 gallons of water. You're quickly going to run out of water and this fire is going to flare up. This could ensnarl traffic, or it could, in a bad scenario, start a wildland fire. Now we do not have any water to suppress this wildland fire.
Thank you. It's a serious problem. Dr. Jivarajan, I was interested in the part of your testimony where you were talking about how necessary it is to know exactly where the battery cells are and to be able to get access to them, to be able to cool them all down to prevent reignition. There's a kind of a similar problem with aircraft and with airport firefighters needing to know where the fuel is, where the emergency exits are, and that's why there are standard markings on aircraft to designate emergency exits, and most airport firefighters are provided with manuals that have a page for each type of airplane that operates at that airport commonly that shows where the flammables are, the fuel and the hydraulics and the oxygen, so that the firefighters are aware of that danger. Do you think that something like that would reduce the risk in EVs and share that knowledge about where these battery cells are located?
Sure. As you know, the cells are located, or the batteries are located on the underside, below the passenger compartment. And they pretty much are through the entire bottom of the vehicle. That also helps with the center of gravity. So one of the things that we are looking at is the SAE is writing a standard. I think it's called the J3108, which is going to be looking at putting some type of a symbol on the registration plates that would tell people what type of vehicle it is, whether it's a gasoline vehicle or electric vehicle, and it could be a pure battery electric vehicle or a PHEV or a HEV. And I think that's still not in place yet, but at some point when that comes in place, then people should be able to just look at it and then go and figure out, or translate it to something like, what I would call a QR code, but it's really just going and looking for a manual that says where it is. But I also think the bigger thing is a design that is required, where if you have an excessive, production of gas, a rupture valve or something opens up, that would allow the firefighters to be able to connect to the insides of the battery, because that will also reduce the amount of water that is needed, because at this time, you're really not able to get to the cells. So you're just trying to cool the outside of the vehicle, which is why it takes a lot more water to put it out. And of course, you're not really reaching the cells, so you're not really putting out the entire problem. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more research and design and engineering that goes into this, and I think we can, get to that.
All right, thank you. Chief Muncy, part of your testimony that you touched on just briefly involved the modification of electric vehicles and how hazardous that could be, because it creates unapparent and unintended consequences and sometimes causing fires. But our home state of California has a rich tradition of allowing hobbyists to modify vehicles. So how do you balance those two ideas, because they seem to be in tension?
I enjoy working on old cars and motorcycles myself, and if I look at the quote from Alfred Lord Tennyson on the wall about looking into the future, that is something we need to do when it comes to electric vehicles. The fact is, lithium-ion batteries that are poorly made and do not meet certification cause fires. My greatest fear is 20, 25 years down the line, as these cars are aging, we will have the home mechanics that are replacing batteries with poorly made, cheaper batteries that could. While I believe that people should be able to work on hobbies, we just need to make sure that we're giving them the ability to purchase the correct batteries, to install them correctly, to maintain their vehicles.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the witnesses for your very valuable testimony and your appearance here today before the committee. It's very clear, I think, two things have come out of this hearing. One, I very much agree with Ranking Member Lofgren that more research is necessary to make sure that that we're making informed decisions around dealing with this problem. And also very much agree with Chief Muncy that it's clear more resources and more training are going to be necessary to keep our firefighters and first responders safe. So we're going to continue having this discussion and hopefully be able to take steps towards solutions to this as more and more of the vehicles on our roads become EVs.